Looks like it's just us.
And that's fine. How's it going, babe? Ooh.
I'm not talking into the mic anyway. How's it going? I'm bringing up the YouTube so I can see if I can hear myself here. I can hear myself.
It's going all right, Just been a regular day, Nothing nothing too exciting, Just a regular day of housewifery, Now that goes. Excited to be talking about this topic tonight, though. Especially considering a lot of the friends I have and people I know in my life. Their approach is this approach quite a bit regarding femininity. So should be should be a lot of fun to unpack this one.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna have to get some kind of intro or something uh, going on here, but we should probably iron out our format first anyway.
We'll
All right.
get it.
Alrighty. Um, so yeah, topic today is femininity and the idea that um, masculinity is kind of necessary in order for you to actualize your full femininity, kind of thing. So yeah, I guess just based off of the strength of that of the opening topic there, what what is just some initial thoughts that you got going through your head right now?
Well, initial thoughts I have are just pretty much that a lot of women feel this way. A lot of women, and I feel like this mentality is pushed on them from society. And I know that's kind of like a bit of a cop out, but I mean, they're not taught to be feminine. Most of us are not taught to be feminine. Most of us are taught to, you know, go out and get a degree and work this job and try to, move up in this job. I mean, I think feminism has really, you know, just just railroaded the way that little girls are taught to exercise being themselves, just lean into being themselves. So that's just what I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a society thing or what, but it is certainly pervasive on the internet. At least this this way of thinking. So it's something I hear. Um, when I on the different panels that I join, if there's women on the panels, they tend to bring this point up either in the chat, the women conversate, or I was going to say conversating. That's not a word. The women are having a conversation in the chat, or
It's a word today.
or the women on the panels will be like, "Oh, well, he ain't masculine, so he don't offer the space for her to be feminine." And I'm here today to challenge that. Now, first, I guess there would be some people that are like, what you're saying is not a thing. It doesn't exist. Uh, I've never heard anybody ever say that before. So I guess before we get started, I'll just play a couple videos. Now, I'll just put this as a disclaimer and say fair use, fair use, fair use. But I don't have any problem with any of the ladies I'm going to be showing, but I'm using them as an example of the kind of stuff that I hear a lot, and they're influencers in their own right. So they represent a large major or at least a large population of the way some I've seen some ladies think. So I'm going to bring up a couple and just kind of use them as examples here. Let me
All right, let's see.
this would be a good time for like some interlude music or something.
Dum, 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 dum.
Can we get copyright stricken for humming?
Probably the way
Like
things be working on YouTube these days.
like if I were to go do 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 like so is somebody gonna come after me?
Probably. Michael Jackson himself probably come after you for that.
He's gonna he's gonna dig himself up out of the grave and be like, hey bro,
Hee hee.
y'all knew better.
Show up behind you while you on the mic.
That's ridiculous. Touch me on the shoulder.
Be like, Shamon.
Shimon, bruh. Scrolling back a little bit. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, here we go.
The cat is crazy. Okay. Hi. Okay. So this title, Stay Feminine, it means no matter what problems you have with a man, what type of man you're dating, how many kids you have, make sure to stay feminine because the more masculine you are as a woman, the less a man will do for you. Straight up.
Girl, the less he'll do for you. Is that what she said?
Yeah, she said the more masculine you are, the less he'll do for you. Now, again, I don't have any problem with Shira 717. I don't remember Shira 7, but I don't have a problem with Shira 7. But I am using what she's saying here because she's a really big influencer in this style of thinking. Um, I am using her to point out something that this thought is actually existed. Um, the and I guess this goes more along the lines of having femininity that you can like turn on and off, like. So she's saying stay in your femininity, or I guess in this case, leave it on. So leave it on at all times. Otherwise, uh, you'll switch out to a masculine. We'll call it frame because that's the way I hear it spoken about a lot. So you'll switch into a masculine frame, and it'll start. You know, you won't get the goodies you want. You know what I'm saying? If you do that.
I agree to, stay feminine, but okay, well, look, it ain't about what I agree with. Go on, I'm sorry. Go on here, sis.
Hold on. So this next video is one from another influencer. very popular one. Um, Again, I have no problem with these influencers. I'm just using them to express a line of thinking. So fair use, fair use, fair use. And we'll go here in a second. I'm using this to kind of frame. Okay. All right, here we go.
Has to take that from you. Now, he doesn't expand on what white femininity looks like, but he does give into that dusty, incorrect, already been debunked notion that it is Black women's participation in democratic politics that is somehow responsible for how Black women have adapted to their society, as opposed to the fact that Black men are not builders, providers, or protectors. And you guys are going to see what I mean, because there's going to be a point where somebody in here is going to challenge him with the fact that Black men have failed to provide an environment where Black women can rest in their femininity in.
So you see where she pops in and says, "Black men have failed to provide an environment for women to rest in their femininity." That's the topic of the discussion today. I'm gonna let it play a little bit longer because she gets a little bit more into it here.
And he doesn't challenge it. He says nothing. And that's because he can't challenge it. At the end of the day, if Black men are not fostering the environment for Black women to be feminine in, then they have no right to sit up here and complain about the lack of femininity. But this is an example of cognitive dissonance, because reality is saying that you haven't fostered the environment necessary for your women to be feminine and you lack masculinity. But in his mindset, he's saying, no, it's their bipartisan party selection that's the issue. They've simply bought into the left or liberalism. It's not that we're just dusty and we don't build anything, we don't provide, and we don't protect.
I see you over there. Any thoughts so far?
No, not in particular. No, I'm still kind of processing what I'm hearing.
Yeah, so there's this idea that one, femininity is a kind of thing that you can kind of at your whim turn on and off. A lot of women find themselves kind of with it off for whatever reason. The first influencer, Shira, didn't really give her perspective on why women end up in their masculine frame, quote unquote. But she did say that you want to make sure it's always on. And then the second notion is that femininity kind of requires masculinity in order to fully embody itself. So it's like if you aren't fully masculine or providing a masculine setting for a woman, then you have no right to expect her to perform in a feminine way. That's kind of the premise of the argument here, or at least as I've seen it. So yeah, so then that kind of brings us to the question. It's like, okay, with all that said, what even is what are they talking about? What is femininity? How is it something that can just be easily switched on and off, or that you can switch on and off, or is it something that just kind of turns itself on when masculinity is present and that you don't really have any control over it? It's just on and there's nothing you can do about it. So which one of these are true, or are both of them true? Let me bring up a little diagram here. Drew a little diagram. I be doing that sometimes.
You are great at drawing, yes.
They ain't gotta know that.
You are, though. You are really good at drawing, babe.
They playing with me. Hold on.
Oh my gosh. Oh no. Who's they? Yeah. Maybe it's the girl in the first video.
You know they are, girl. You know, they out here playing with me. All right, so got a diagram here. Um, the black circle in the middle represents the unknown. Now you'll notice how they're kind of like the blue and red circle are kind of shifted, juxtaposed, I guess, to the black circle in the middle.
Yes.
Um, yes, and that's because it's really the same circle. The red and blue just represent kind of perspectives of that black circle that you can take from it. So you can take the masculine kind of structure there, where like you can take from the unknown or all there is if when you try to make sense of the unknown. So this is you going from the unknown in the middle to try to make sense of it. If you make sense of it in a masculine way, or in the masculine perspective, then you have like projection, assertiveness, aggression. You know what I'm saying? These are, light is considered masculine because it's active activity. Um, um, you know, these are the kind of things that we associate with masculinity as a general concept, not anything particularly referenced to men or women, but just as a overall overarching kind of concept. Now, you trying to make sense of, let's say, women, uh, female woman, uh, or female person, female human, and you try to make sense of the unknown. It's like, who is this person? Trying to make sense of that, and you move to the feminine. There are certain things that are represented by the feminine or feminine force of the unknown, and that is more like the passive, hidden, I guess what people would consider meek, um, so what people would consider submissive, um, attentive listening. People associate that with empathy sometimes. These are the kind of traits that manifest from femininity as a social construct from the unknown. So this isn't like necessarily um, focused down just on a human woman, but let's say an outlet where you've got the holes in the outlet and it's able to receive the masculine, um, you know, I guess, plug that you plug into the outlet. So, um, these are principles that are represented in everything. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Questions?
I don't know what to ask. So wait, so are you saying it like okay. Are you saying they're all just kind of together? Like everybody has a little bit of everything? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, it's like it's all represented as the same thing. So so like with it all meshed together, like let's say we didn't have labels for anything, that would mean that everything, like we would just see things like a baby see things, like all things are just what they are. Like and it's all together. There's no real discrimination between this or that. Um, in order for us to start understanding the world or take the unknown and start making sense of it, we pull from it certain perspectives. So you got the masculine and the feminine perspective as a gender concept for all things that exist, and at the same time, there are masculine and feminine aspects in all things. So in me, even as a, I guess if you were to consider me like the masculine projection of the unknown, then there's still feminine aspects to my humanity. There's still femininity inside me. So there's like, there like I'm not all the way, aggressive or all the way, it's not 100% thing. It's more like everything is kind of blended together. And then the reason why I come off more masculine than feminine is just because of the way that, the way that the distinction of masculinity kind of finds itself expressing itself through me. Like there's more masculine than feminine in me. So I come out as a masculine being. There's more femininity than masculinity in you. So you come out as a feminine being. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I definitely get it now. Thank you for breaking it down for me, babe.
Yeah. And that comes from the same, um, kind of thing as the yin and yang. So
So it's not yang, it's yang.
well, yeah.
Okay, I see. I didn't know that.
Oh, we're in Inception. All right, so if we take my diagram and we do, it's essentially saying the same thing. The whole of the uh, of the circle represents the unknown or all there is, and then within the all there is, you have two different perspectives. People generally see these two things as pieces that go together, but they're not pieces that go together. They are two energies that require each other for all there is to exist. You see what I'm saying? Like they're not different. They have their distinct qualities within the bigger circle, but they're not two things that you can take apart from each other, because if you take one from the other, then nothing exists. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. They're 100% needed in order for both of the, well, both of, they need each other, is pretty much what you're saying. As far as this shape is concerned in front of us right now.
Yeah, and even more than that, it's like they are each other. So you see the black within the white, or the light that represents the masculine side yin here, and then the yang, the feminine that has the darkness, and just as I had it on my diagram. But then you see these small circles that just let you know that even within something that you think is just completely masculine, like it's not really just masculine. There's aspects that of each other that exist within, because they're not, at the end of the day, they're still all a part of this big circle. There is no real distinction. The distinction only comes in because we human beings like to take things and take them, or think we can take them apart. But it's really just a part of the world. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I'm definitely following what you're saying.
Get my notes back here. So yeah. Right. So yeah, so when we think about femininity in that aspect, and the darkness aspect, and I just want to be clear, not darkness like evil, um, darkness because an aspect of darkness is receiving. Um, Things are dark because all light is absorbed, or all color is absorbed. All things are taken in. It's an acceptance. Light is a projection. It's a rejection of all color. It's a projection out. So that's why masculine is considered light, because it's a projection away from. And even when you think about how society kind of delineates masculinity, one of the key aspects of masculinity is to separate oneself, try to make some kind of individuality, and go create something for yourself. So that this is the aspect of masculinity: projection, creation, that kind of stuff. And it's bringing up.
Glad you broke that down though, about the dark and light. I'm sure someone listening might have wondered. I know when you initially said it, I was like, "Oh, hold on now. Feminine is dark. Hold on."
No, yeah, not dark like we think of it in the West. That's a Western evil good thing that they did over here, especially when it came to slavery and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
so yeah, that's got nothing to do with the actual concepts of light and dark as far as spirituality is concerned. Now, the last show I had up here, I had put a diagram up of like analog and digital, and I was talking about culture. And that's a big aspect of what's going on here too. Because when we think of femininity, I would break it down into two different parts, looking at it from that analog digital kind of perspective. And I'll bring that up real quick, just so we know what I'm talking about here, because you know what I'm saying. Nobody's out there really watching, but if you were watching and you watch this, you'd be like, "What the hell are you talking about, bro? I didn't watch that last one. I'm only watching this one."
Yeah, show me what you talking about, cause I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Mm.
Having a little trouble.
Nah, I'm good. No, I'm joking. Oh, did I kill it? I killed it. Is it up? You see it? You see
No,
it? No?
no, babe. There it is.
You see it now?
Yes.
All right, yeah. So we got the digital analog, and you got analog's more like the physical side, or more related to the physical side, and digital is more like the mental reality. You can see that they're connected here. So if we're talking about femininity as a physical concept, like how it manifests for us physically, there's like a femininity that exists that is like physical. So like outlets where you can plug things in, that's a feminine quality. Um, People who are female or manifest from the universe as female are would be like a physical representation of femininity. Digital would be more like our concepts of femininity, like the social structures of femininity. So like all the cultural stuff that gets passed down from generation to generation. um, the things that are considered feminine because of like the things that you do. So like cooking, cleaning, those are all concepts that doesn't have anything to do with actual physical, how femininity actually exists in the world. That's just how people think about femininity. So yeah, I would break it down into two different types. Those two different types. Um, and yeah, so from the social construct uh, angle of this, um, there's a oopsie. There's a concept called angel in the house. That's a Victorian concept that was brought over here in the 1800s from a poet. Um, and it really made its way over here, especially after slavery, when black people, black men especially, were made free. They wanted to kind of make sure, or they wanted to kind of separate femininity from white people from black people. There's a talk by a YouTube content creator named the Green Gorilla. He has a PhD. He's a teacher. He's got a lot of good information. But he went over this in depth. I tried to find that to kind of give people a shortcut to what I'm talking about here, but couldn't really find that stream. So I'm going to kind of try to wing it here. The Where's it got here? Okay. The angel in the house is a term used by a Victorian poet. That's his name, and is perhaps the most famous term for describing how women were during the Victorian era. They were confined to the home, were expected to be domestic, innocent, and extremely helpless when it came to anything outside the home was concerned. Now, I highlight that part because again, I'm gonna bring up what's her name, Shira. I'm gonna bring up Shira again, and she kind of highlights that one of those notions in her video. Um, so so I'm gonna find that real quick.
That's a really interesting concept too. Interesting to know where exactly that all came from to letting us see that. I wonder what the world would be like if, that was actually something that was mainstream still. Like, you know what I mean? Like, really something like if those were desirable traits for women now. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I know men are saying that's what they want and things like that, but it just, I guess maybe now it's just not what women want or something. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't speak for them. I'm
No, because I feel like what you're saying is really important, and here's why it's really important. Because and I think I'm gonna touch on it a little bit later, but it's like uh, social roles of femininity kind of change with the times. So I think a lot of dudes are kind of romanticizing a way that things were done, quote, better, end quote, but they were done that way and they worked that way because the things that were going on in that time allowed for this kind of environment to exist. So the middle class was just beginning to emerge, and women had and men and women had still had servants to do the things in the house that I guess we would typically see as quote woman's work end quote from the 1950s. So you have these women who are in the house with their servants doing a bunch of the work for a bunch of the housework for them, cleaning, educating children, feeding children, all that kind of stuff. So they were kind of left in these roles where they could focus more on socializing and that kind of stuff. But I mean, nowadays it's not really the case that same kind of environment exists. So um, especially with us moving into automation and stuff like that. But let me go ahead.
Yeah, I mean the average family back then. I mean, even if they didn't have servants, they were still, doing their own housework, or having their children help with the housework and things like that. A lot of times they were on farms, so they would be doing that stuff all day. Cleaning, cooking, churning milk to make it to butter, or things like that. But now, I mean, it's so expensive to live. I mean, everybody pretty much in the household usually needs to be pulling in some sort of money if they're not a child. So,
Yeah, and to add on to what you're saying, children are more like a luxury now, whereas like you were saying before, children were actually involved in the housework, even outside of the middle class and working class families. There was no labor laws. You know what I'm saying? Children actually went and worked as well. So like it was everybody pulling in. Money, like the times were completely different. Now kids kind of just sit around and they have minimal responsibilities to the household or to society, like they did before. So a lot of things are different now than they were back then. So to what people are doing now are kind of picking the parts uh, that they like, and they're kind of making a version of that life that they would like to live. But I'm not sure that the way that we are, especially the direction that we're headed, would really, you know, facilitate that kind of living.
interesting. Okay, yeah, I'm really interested to see where you're going with that because I think I agree, especially for the average person, the average family, the average relationship. It may be a little impractical for the Victorian age, like she leave the house and she can't even handle nothing outside the house without the husband at all. She don't even know what to do. Oh dear, what do I do outside of our home? I have no idea. Like
Not the earthly clue. Anyway, let me bring this up real quick because that goes right into what I'm about to do here.
okay, yeah.
You got it, you can handle it, you could do a better job than they can, they're not really going to try to be helping you. So even if you know you could do all those things, stay feminine. Let a man do them for you, even if you can't. For example, even if it's just the slightest, smallest thing like carrying something heavy. If someone offers to help you carry something heavy, even if you can carry it, just let them. Okay. I do that all the time. I'm like, I know I can carry.
So you see what I mean here? The Victorian style of femininity was more like, women are helpless outside the house. They really need help doing everything. She's saying, and then she perpetuates that idea by saying, even if you can do it, allow a man to do it. You see what I'm saying? Like because she perpetuates that feeling of helplessness. She's perpetuating the social archetype from the Victorian era.
Okay, so pretty much kind of putting on airs of femininity. Okay, yeah, I'm following.
And this is the type of femininity that I guess one would argue you could turn on and off. It's like, well, I'm not going to be feminine for a man, and these are the kind of external doings. Like, I'm not going to allow him to open doors for me, or to, or I'm not going to be quiet and just be seen and not heard. And these are the kind of external things that are attributed to social kind of femininity. Um, Give me a second here. Bring up my notes. All right, I was really going to hammer this home with a bunch of other examples from her, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do now is show like a closer version of how that showed up um, in America. And yes, that Victorian era angel in the house thing did show up here, but it also showed up in the form of in the antebellum South. So the Southern woman, the Southern belle, was the epitome of of social femininity at the time, and it's kind of the archetype that we continue to use, at least in the Black community, as a staple of femininity today. So I'm going to bring that up. Hold on.
I declare, I agree. I sure do think that the Southern Bells are definitely the. I need to stop. The epitome of femininity. I need to I need to stop before I wake the apprentice.
Hundreds, the 19th century. The first is the concept of reform, which, when we're thinking of reform, we're thinking about the desire, the need to improve society, to improve people's social, economic, working positions. And what we see throughout the 19th century is a multitude of voluntary societies opening, which included, benevolent associations or charitable associations um, that really focused on some of the problems that came about with industrialization. And
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to stop this real quick because she mentioned industrialization here. And I said social femininity is something that kind of changes with the times. So femininity for a farmer doesn't look the same as femininity for for somebody in the first industrial revolution. Like because of course, a woman in who's farming can't afford to sit up and around in the house um, you know, doing can't afford to sit up and around in a house in the same way that a middle class um, industrialized nation woman can sit around the house. Sitting around the house changes. You see what I'm saying? Like the a woman in a farm setting is going to be there's still going to be some outside work that she does. A lot of her work, at least in the United States, was still done in the house, but it had more of an active presence. But as technology kind of increased, staying in the house was more like a social, very boring kind of experience for women. So it's like you can't. It's like domestic roles kind of morph as technology makes advances. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. It changed over time, and it changes, of course, with where people are living and things like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep going. Hold on.
These reform societies, these voluntary societies, really transformed and pushed the boundaries um, of women's public roles. Um, so really opening opportunities for them to get involved in what otherwise might be seen as men's work. So we'll go into that a little bit more.
So industrialization offered women the opportunity to interface with the public in a way that was seen as men's work before. What it I guess wasn't mentioned with the Victorian model of angel in the house is that uh, going out and facing the public, or I guess we could look at that in the analog digital way for masculine too. It's like projection out into the public was seen as a masculine kind of role. So being in a public space was more seen like you can be corrupted there. You can, yeah, especially in a religious society, you're intermingling amongst people. There's business deals going on that can affect your morality in ways that may be negative, stressful kind of situations are going on. And as a man who has a wife at home, it was seen as kind of like a status symbol to have your wife at home. So that expectation of the wife when the man got out of a working situation like that was that he's coming home to his moral, clean, floating above the clouds wife who kind of brings him back down to moral realities. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. It sounds like a lot of responsibility for both the husband and wife in those families, and that's interesting. It's yeah.
Yeah. So what was going on when things started getting industrialized? It's like, well, now um, there are there are technological inventions that allow women to interface with the public in a way that they couldn't necessarily do before. Industrial work isn't as hard as it was before. I mean, there were still women working out there, especially during war times and things like that, but now that technology has advanced, women can interface with the public, which was more seen as a man's space. So now they can do kind of men's work, and you can see that transformation of what the social gender role is for a woman changing as to like I was saying before, as technology uh, advances. Let me just make sure I'm on the right track. Yeah.
We also see the evolution of the ideology of public versus private spheres, which we'll be talking about in a second. The idea that there are appropriate areas for men to dwell and appropriate areas for women to dwell in society. And then what we also see is throughout the 19th century, a growing separation of women and men's lives, very unlike the colonial era when men and women are working sometimes alongside each other, if not within the same household, within, on the same farm, in the same family business. As industrialization develops in America, we see just a greater separation between gender.
Yeah, so she's basically just saying what I said. Industrialization increases, gender roles kind of get, you know what I'm saying? Gender roles start the morphing around the reality that the technology is creating. And honestly, we see a lot of that now. So, if you ask me, right now it's just a reorganization of that as technology increases. But so men and women are trying to develop their gender roles instead of like the government kind of pretty much telling them what their gender roles are. Um, Now, don't get me wrong. I think the government is still kind of trying to tell you, but maybe they're doing it a little more subtly, and that argument can certainly be made. But maybe that's a different topic for a different day. Were you going to say something?
No, I was gonna say, so you think that men and women are trying to develop their own like new gender roles now? Because I don't think so. I think they're just kind of winging it in their own personal, like really, just winging it in their own personal situations and just living their lives and just trying to stay afloat is what it kind of just comes off like to me. Because I think it's kind of like the yin and what is it, young, how do you say?
Just say yang.
Okay, yin and yang, like like they just are just doing what they have to do to make it happen is what it's coming off like to me.
Yeah, it's like there's an aspect of that. Well, I guess if you boil it down to each individual person, it looks like kind of like a flailing of oh, I don't know what to do. Let's go back to the old stuff. Like that's kind of what it looks like at the individual level. But when you start looking at it at the overall, I guess, humanity group consciousness level, so you start looking at it as a nation, like what's happening nationwide. Like you see, like people, it's almost like human beings are trying to just throw whatever they can at the wall to see which direction is the next direction that'll fit best with the environment. So it's like the on some kind of level that's maybe subconscious, people recognize that the environment is changing, and they realize that there is going to be some kind of reorganization of what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman socially. So on a large scale, men and women are trying to figure out what are the roles we can play with each other that interoperate with each other in this new society where this technology is kind of trying to form uh, on the horizon here, or at least that's the way I see it right now. I'm gonna do this part of the antebellum thing because I think it needs to be said. So,
The word antebellum is always going to make me think of that movie. It doesn't matter what the
one movie.
context is. The one with doesn't it have Janelle Monáe in it?
Oh, okay. The women doing the NASA thing.
No, not that one. I can't remember the name of that one. But it's kind of like a scary movie.
Oh man, I
Maybe
don't know that one.
yeah, maybe we could watch it later or something.
All right, let me hit that play button.
What we see is that throughout the literature, magazines, literature, novels, um, these ideas about women and men being so different, so yin and yang from each other, yet so complementary to each other also, um, made it so that um, women were defined in sometimes new terms from the colonial era. Um, what it meant to be a good, quote unquote, good woman was to be um, pious, um, to be very, Protestant Christian, follow the Bible, be the moral compass to the family. Pure to be pure, purity was another mark of a good woman. Saving sex till marriage, not being overly sexual, um, being virtuous, being putting the good of the community, of the family, ahead of one's own, um, being selfless, right? These are all marks of what a good woman was in the Victorian antebellum era. And class and race really posed challenges to this ideology. For, as we'll see, women who are of lower class, of working class, they have to work to supplement the family's economy, their economic wages, and they don't have the ability to maybe stay home and focus solely on the family and the kids. This was also something that was really constructed by these Western European notions about gender, and we're particularly focusing on white women, not African American women or Native American women. So,
Mm. Mhm.
Yeah, I felt like it was important to say that because, and also shout out to BGS because he calls that the myth of white womanhood. Um, and I think I'm not quite sure. I don't remember the video that much, but I think he meant myth in the sense of not myth in the sense of womanhood doesn't exist, even though you can certainly take it that way, but myth of white womanhood in the sense that um, white womanhood was a mythology, like almost like a narrative that that a lot of, especially since we know a lot of slavery was done in the South. Most of the slavery was done in the South, and black women kind of looked to the mistress of the house as the representation of what it was to be a woman after our culture was completely broken. He kind of alludes to the idea that what a lot of black women, I guess the cultural transmission of what it is to be a woman for black women comes from that antebellum Victorian, mistress of the house who was the queen of her castle in the South on the plantation.
So he's saying that the way that we view it now is based on that particular time in history.
Yeah, and I think you could probably anecdotally support that um, with just the way that especially online, like a lot of women see femininity. They definitely refer back to that kind of, and men do it too. So I'm not going to act like they don't, but men do it too. They refer back to this Victorian archetype of what it is to be a woman of that era. Um, it has less to do with trying to find solutions on, I mean, we were just talking about this. It has less to do with trying to find solutions on what it means to be a woman from here going forward, and more um, to do with what does it mean, what did it mean to be a woman in the times past. So of course, using slavery, antebellum Victorian women as an archetype. But yeah, so, and yeah, that's yeah.
Okay, so with all of that being said, it looks like femininity in the Victorian antebellum era. I mean, it seemed as though you could be feminine during that time, femininity could exist without a masculine presence, a man in your life. But maybe you would be a whore or something like that, because you look, I'm just being honest. I mean, as far as when you were an adult woman, because you would have no food, you would have no, you would have to be married, you would need that male presence in order to survive. It was a necessity. It sounds like in those times. I mean, even if you weren't married off, I guess you'd end up being an old maid and living with your parents. I mean, right? Look, I'm just okay. Uh, I'm just saying. So, you would end up being an old maid living with your parents, until whenever. But nowadays, okay, when it's the question of whether or not you could still be feminine, I mean, what is
Yeah,
femininity now? You know what I mean? What is femininity now? Let's.
yeah, hold that thought. I was going to, like, I'm gonna figure out a way to shorten this first part so we can get, right into the discussion a lot faster. Of course, I kind of waited last minute to get all this stuff together, so it's coming out a lot longer than I wanted it to be. But yeah, so I'm just gonna speed run this next part, and I won't do any videos. So yeah, so there's another aspect of femininity that has to do with more of the physical side, and that's the stuff that you can see and feel, and that is true because you can look around and you can see it. So, um, you know, um, a lot of people kind of point to our biological tendencies with that. So they'll point to, like, sex hormones, or sex organs and things like that, and those are definitely helpful representations of uh, what it is to be, or not to be, but what it is to uh, represent the feminine aspect of the universe as it manifests physically. But it's more than sex hormones. It's almost like a distinct kind of energy that exists. And once that energy is present, it manifests itself in the form of sex hormones, or in the form of sex organs, or in the form of female women, female cats, female dogs, whatever. It's like the energy itself helps the physical manifestation come out. So there's a female almost isness, or a female being that exists beneath all the physical stuff that helps that physical stuff manifest. You see what I'm saying? So it's like it's something beyond the idea of what femininity is, or the thoughts that we have of social constructs of, okay, a feminine woman stays in the house, a feminine woman is pure. These are all just thoughts, but behind those thoughts, um, there's almost like this something that just is feminine, coming from the unknown. It just is what it is. And that's an aspect of femininity we kind of ignore, at least in Western culture anyway. And that's an aspect of femininity that I would argue is not so easy to turn off. Now, there are ways to kind of make yourself oblivious to it. And one of those ways is kind of like trauma. So you exist as a child, you're just being yourself. You don't know what a girl or a boy is. You're just kind of being who you are. And certain things come along that kind of change your perspective. And you're like, oh man, you know, why did that happen to me, or why did this or that happen to me? That kind of sucked. I got to prepare myself for, you know, um, a situation like this to happen again. And what you end up doing is kind of like, so if you take that known unknown chart that I had, you end up kind of segmenting a part of yourself off, so you can be like, okay, if I ever run into a problem like this again, I'll just use this part that I segmented off, so I know how to respond to it. And that's what trauma is called, because it's almost like a taking of that isness, and or that being, and like separating it off into something else so that you can protect yourself. But essentially what you're doing is making things more difficult for you to live. So um, that part's kind of hard to explain without a video.
I think I'm following what you're saying, though. Of course, trauma does tend to make people start to disassociate parts of themselves from themselves without them even knowing it. So that's pretty much essentially what you're saying, right?
Yes, exactly. So, um, maybe, you went through some kind of trauma, or let's say I go through some kind of trauma about being a man, and I'm like, well, being I don't think men are assertive. So I segment the parts of myself that are assertive off so I don't see them. Um, Now I'm still being assertive, but I've just made myself unaware to how being assertive shows up in my life. And I've fashioned a way for me to kind of maybe I'm like, I don't think men are assertive, so I'm going to be, more quiet. I'm going to be more shy. I'm going to be more meek. I'm going to stay out of the way. That doesn't mean all that assertiveness is just gone. Uh, it just means that you've created a little template of patterns for yourself so that you can agree that so you can agree with that worldview that you have for yourself, and then you made it so you can't see it. Um, so you have like a little bit of cognitive dissonance. Um, excuse me. Now, essentially, we talked about the learning brain and the survival brain before, and how fear kind of drives a survival brain, and it's hard to learn in that brain, in that way of thinking. And you're always scared of what people are going to think of you and that kind of stuff. It's like when you live in that kind of reality, um, you can't really be your full self, because in that fear state, you're you're essentially living off of patterns and trauma. You're only reacting. You're not really living. You're just kind of um, you've kind of set a bunch of templates for you to uh, you're like, okay, the world's scary, all this stuff is going to happen. I'm going to create all these templates for myself so that when I'm in certain situations I know how to react. But you don't really have a choice anymore. You're just kind of like, stuff happens, and then stuff happens to you, and you just move in the way that you pre-programmed. You know what I mean?
So you trying to say these women that be switching their femininity off and on and can do that they done had some trauma in their life, and they're able to compartmentalize it? Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm saying that's probably likely, and I'm also saying that I don't think it's as easy for them to turn off as they're making it out to be. And I guess that's a question I'll pose to you. Do you think it's something that you can turn on and off?
Mm, I mean, I think you can. I mean, as far as the outward attributes of femininity. I mean, maybe the things that you actually feel and things like that, you can't. Maybe you eat those feelings away, or you know, just internalize your true feelings about things. But yeah, I think maybe the outward expressions of femininity, you definitely can.
Yeah, and I would even argue, I would even argue that you're not really even turning those off. You're just kind of choosing to act in a way that's not that, but the wants and um, the feelings that drive you to, you know, I guess we're saying the same thing here. Like the feelings are still there. You still want to do this stuff. You know, you're just forcing yourself to act in a different way. You haven't turned it off in the sense that it's actually gone anywhere. It's still there. You're just ignoring it.
Yeah, we're definitely saying the same thing, but like in every way. So yeah. So we both think then that femininity for those who are feminine in nature is not something that you can turn off. If you are feminine, then you're feminine.
Yes, if you're, I would say, I guess more to make it more concise, would be like if you are a feminine representation of the universe, then you are a feminine representation of the universe. There's absolutely nothing you can do about that. So, um, you know what I'm saying? Like uh, the way your body has, not even just your body. It's like the isness that you are doesn't change. The only thing that you can really be successful at is blocking um, what you think about yourself. Um, I think that's probably the best that you could do, in my opinion. So, um, another thing that I was kind of thinking about was that so like the social the social femininity we were talking about, it's not so easy to turn off. I would also say that once you created these patterns because you've been traumatized before in your life, that you know once you've created these patterns where you are acting in a way that is not feminine because you think that it's necessary in order for you to survive. I would argue that it's not so easy once you find a quote masculine man end quote for you to turn it back on. So I think by that point you're so led by your patterns and habits that you wouldn't even know what it means to be feminine at that point. Like you wouldn't you'd be so caught up in your head, you'd be like, well, now what do I do? You're so locked in your patterns that I don't think it's very easy for you to just flip the switch and go the opposite direction.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. In my own personal life, with friends, people I know, I mean, this pops up all the time. You know, we may be talking about a relationship that my friends are in, and stuff like that, and those types of situations present themselves all the time. Like a lot of the time, because of, I mean, this is just what a lot of women know these days. They know to react to a lot of these situations in a masculine way. Is just I mean, and when they're in a situation where they don't have to anymore, you know, maybe they do have that masculine presence, maybe that man is there, you know, and they're wanting to support, help, be there for things like that. They don't know how to let this person help them, be there, be that support for them that they want to be.
Yeah, it almost like you're doing it for so long. It's like now who's controlling who at this point? You know what I mean? Like you think those habits and tendencies are just something that you can be like, oh well, I found the right guy, I'm gonna turn it off. But you know, now this now the stress and the the habit of looking over your shoulder and not trusting men and everything like that has become such a strong prevalent force in your life that it's not so easy to trust men anymore. Like it's not so easy to um, it's not so easy to uh, just be submissive because I mean, being submissive requires a great deal of trust, and you've gone your whole however many years not trusting. So uh, it's not. I would argue that it's not something that you could just be like, oh, I found the right one. Okay, I'm turning it on now. It's like I don't think it's as easy as they're making it seem.
Listen, in 2021, 2020, 2019, whatever, you know what I'm saying? It's not, excuse me, I had to cough. It's not it's not easy to be submissive. It's not, because everything everywhere around you is telling you not to do that.
Yeah, and even more than that. So like, so the the way it's framed with you know needing a masculine presence in order for you to fully be feminine is uh even the way that's framed doesn't get down to the root issue, because it's like, okay, say you believe that was true, that you need a fully masculine man for you to be fully feminine. Let's say we all agree with that. So it's not really the man that's making you feminine in this point. At this point, it's the feeling that you are safe that is making you feel like you can be feminine. You see what I'm saying? Because you are looking to the man to provide a safe environment. So it's the safety that makes you feel feminine, not the man.
I'm definitely following what you're saying. I definitely am.
So then the question becomes, okay, if it's the safety that makes you feel feminine and not the man, how much of that feeling safe is generated exclusively by those patterns that you have in your head, and how much of it is you're in actual danger?
That's another one too. And then with that being said, with those patterns still in your head, and then random Prince Charming walks in who wants to, sweep you off your feet or whatever, are you going to trust the yourself, or are you going to trust Prince Charming?
Exactly, because at this point, it's not even a matter of trusting Prince Charming. It's like, okay, do I even trust myself with letting, like, if you're so caught up in, you know the world's so scary and I'm going to get hurt, it's like, well, do you trust yourself to let him do what he needs to do, or what you think he needs to do? Like, even in the way that they frame femininity needing a man, it still comes back to the individual. It still comes back to her feeling safe first. Like, and I would argue that a lot of the safety, like, if you don't trust men, if you think men are, you know, if you think men are predators, or you think a lot of men are up to no good, then, like, I don't see how you could find a man and then be like, okay, this man, like, it's not like your mind's like gonna go, oh, this one's not like the rest. It's gonna be like, oh, he's a man too, still in the background. You know what I mean? So until that gets addressed, um, you're never gonna, like, it's gonna be very difficult for you to put yourself in a situation in order for you to feel safe. You're not gonna feel safe because you don't see a reason to feel safe. Like, nothing about your world has really changed. You just found an anomaly.
So what you trying to say to these women who's trying to be feminine is get some counseling.
I think counseling is good. I think it can be helpful, and I think if that's the way that a lot of women, or if that's the way that people feel like they want to go, I think they should absolutely do that. It's very helpful in untangling that web. But especially if you really feel like you can't do it by yourself, like, or you've been doing it by yourself for a long time and no results have really shown up. It's like, okay, maybe you need some help. But I guess I'm saying, like, on the one hand, I agree. Like, there is a level of interdependence that's necessary with once you require the trust and everything. Like, once you get past the trusting yourself to allow another person to protect you and things like that, there is a level of trust between you and that person that needs to be established, and interdependence in the sense that you're going to need them to be fully what you would like them to be in order for you to um, trust them. But I think there's like a vetting process that would allow, like, you could be comfortable in your own skin and trusting of men in general, and allow yourself to be in that learning, open brain kind of situation and vet men. You could be a submissive or quote submissive in quote woman, passive woman, still vet a man because you still have a mind, and still be like, okay, based on what I'm seeing from this guy, I don't think he'd be a good match for whatever it is I'm looking for. And then just part your separate ways. You don't need to enter into a, I guess what is, or I would argue, you don't need to enter into what is called a masculine frame in order to do that. It's like you're not really scaring anybody when you do that. You're just making yourself alone. Well, anyway, um, I don't know if you agree or disagree or what's going on.
I look. I mean, at the end of the like, I feel like in order for women to consistently get to a point where they are resting in their femininity, they probably do need to unpack any issues they do have with themselves. Like, I mean, and that's just, trust issues that they might have with family, like, I mean, just things like that. I just think they just really need to actually unpack.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're on agreement here. These shows aren't going to be very interesting for people if we keep agreeing.
Maybe one day we will disagree.
um, but yeah, let's talk about the direction that I think things are going. I guess since there's a little bit of time here. Um, yeah, so right now I think we're in a really awkward transitional phase. A lot of what we understood femininity to be socially is changing because a lot of things socially are changing. Robotic process automations on the way, blockchain, machine learning, artificial intelligence. The singularity is approaching. Um, and I think it's starting to affect um, the way, like it's gonna one change the service economy and most of the most of the area where women are working is in service. So that's a big deal. And I think that it's going to change the way we socially view gender roles in two ways. Um, it had, excuse me, it hasn't really come to fruition yet. So it's hard to predict what it will look like. But um, I think at some point there's going to be a crash or some kind of economic undoing before the new economic system arises. So during that time, I think gender roles will probably revert back to some kind of archaic way that they were before. Um, but directly after that, I think things are going to change again, and they're going to change to be. Um, I think family's going to look a lot different. I don't think family is going to be nuclear anymore. I think it's going to be more community centered. Like, you have a child and the child belongs to, the block or whatever, or the pod or whoever. And, people are, I think there's really going to be more commingling and things like that. It's going to be less of this individual unit kind of society that we see in the West right now. And right now we're just trying. And right now, what we're seeing, especially online, is people trying to figure out what masculinity and femininity looks like when robots are doing all the stuff that masculine men and giving all the opportunities that feminine women, you know, didn't have before. So yeah.
So you're saying that you feel like masculinity and femininity in the next couple of years is going to change because of where the world is going.
Yeah, and I say that because I think that it has to. Um, like if everything collapses, then we have to go back to the way things were, because like you are going to need a man's capability in order to live. so so men are going to become a lot more valuable than they were or than they are now, because you don't really need, like, the way society's set up, you don't really need a man right now. Like, not practically. Now I think if everybody was fully actualized uh with who they are as a human being, uh then none of that would matter anyway. But since people are so stuck in their head, and they're like, what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a woman? Oh, a man does this and this. Okay, well, how does that line up with reality? Like, that's the way people are thinking in the background. And they're so caught up with that, or at least that's the way I think they're thinking. And they're so caught up with that when the environment changes, they're like, okay, I can't, you know I can't be a man the way I was a man before. So how do I be a man now? Kind of thing. So I don't know.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, it sounds like a bunch of searching, like people just searching for themselves in what they see out there. And I know I say this a lot, but that sounds very sad.
No, and think about it, because like if you look around the manosphere, especially the manosphere, if you look at the manosphere, that's exactly what guys are doing. That's exactly what guys are complaining about. They don't feel useful, or they feel, yeah, they don't feel, a lot of guys don't feel useful. They don't feel like there's a place for them in women's lives. And honestly, there's not. Because women, like, if we see each other as nothing but utilities, then utility wise, there is no need for a man. There's not. Like, you can do what you utility wise, you can do whatever you want. Like, you don't need a man for anything. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah, it's pretty messed up though. Like I don't even know what to say to that because it really is. I understand why they're searching. Like I totally get it. I understand the just kind of not knowing and stuff like that. I mean, and of course they're not saying that. Of course, maybe they don't realize it, but
yeah.
you can tell, especially after what you're saying, you can tell that's what they're doing.
Yeah, a lot of guys right now are just like, what am I here for? Like, what do I exist for? Because even guys sadly look at themselves as a utility, like, and they're trying to figure out, what utility do I bring to life? And a lot of guys, I mean, look at the suicide rates, and a lot of guys don't really see what utility they have. They don't see themselves as useful. And when your primary focus is utility, and you don't see yourself as a useful utility, then it almost feels like you're doing a favor for everybody when you get rid of yourself. And that can take shape in different ways. It doesn't necessarily have to be uh, killing yourself or anything, but it could be, ostracizing yourself to very niche corners of society. You know, um, there's an experiment on that you can still find on YouTube called Mouse Utopia, where when the population of mice got so large in this ecosystem that was created for them in a lab where everything was provided for them, that you know, there was a self-correcting process and the population fell down. You look at human society now. Population, birth rates are on the decline. People are killing themselves at higher rates. More segmented, excuse me, radical parts of society are forming where people are kind of shutting themselves in, and it's all, in my opinion, coming because we see ourselves as utilities, much like, nothing really above an animal. Like, we have no choice, and when we see ourselves that way, I mean, we fall in line with what animals do. So that's why I keep saying, like, the on the path we're headed, we're on the path to destruction. But yeah, that's
That got dark.
see, that's why we need sound effects. I could play like some Sonic the Hedgehog or some crazy shit. We're all gonna die.
Oh my God. Yeah, we gotta get some of those just to kind of lighten it a little bit, because it got real doom and gloom up in here for that last little segment. Oh my God.
No, it's not doom and gloom. It's I mean, I can see why it'd be taken that way, but I don't see it as doom and gloom. It's there's a lot of hope in there. I
Where?
think
Where? Wasn't no hope in what you just said, babe. Wasn't no hope nowhere.
no, check this out, because when there's a, I'm gonna quote Avatar here. The lowest point is the opportunity.
Wait, what?
I'm gonna quote the Avatar.
Aang?
Yes.
Not even Korra? Since, I mean,
I mean,
talking femininity here, so.
From Korra, but it's still gonna be Aang. So
Okay, I'll let that pass then. I'll let it pass.
So he says, when we are at our lowest point, we are open to the greatest change. So, like, I think, like, not to get biblical, but to get biblical for a second, like, like, if you look at the story of Christ, I suppose, like, Christ went through a whole lot of stuff before the resurrection. You know what I mean? Like, there was a whole bunch of pain before that. So and I think that story in the Bible was just was just, shown as an example to say that, you have to go through a bunch of crap in order for you to realize the truth of who you full and really are. Now, I say that it's an opportunity for you to do that because it's not guaranteed that you'll take that path. but when things get really jacked up is when we have the biggest opportunity for us to open up to the universe. So it's my hope that that's what's happening right now, and I think that I'm fully under the presumption that it is happening, but I don't make any, I'm not making any concessions, I guess, with the truth. If we go down destruction, then we go down destruction. But I think the beauty of going down the path of destruction is that people are really gonna open up their hearts to something different because they won't have a choice. They'll be out of options. So, you know what I mean? So I look forward to it,
Dun, 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 dun,
We're
dun,
gonna
dun,
die.
dun, dun.
It's all over.
Yeah, I definitely do hope for the best, but the universe is gonna do what it's gonna do and everything like that.
Yeah, and I'm ready for it. So, I know where I stand, so I'm good. But the rest of
Okay.
y'all,
Okay. No, I'm just kidding. But nah, yeah, good talk tonight though, babe.
thank you, and of course, it's always good talking to you as well. I feel like it's weird to say that on air, but I get it. Yeah, so I put up a couple new topics, and we'll be back to talk about that. Hopefully, I'll have the format a little more tidy, so we just we just bust through it, and we get through when we get through the format in a way that is, and we get it set up in a way that we like it. We'll probably move this over to our new channel, and then you can start talking about some topics that are important to you.
Yay, that would be fun. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I hope you did get something from this. And we hope to see you next time. Maybe next time me and Quiz will disagree on something.
Maybe, don't count on it. See ya.
Bye.